So thank you everyone for being here today. We are really excited to welcome John Grabo, who is an attorney here in Iowa. He has a variety of different experiences and recently moved to the area, but is here just to talk more about Medicaid planning, and I'm glad that he's here. So I will go ahead and turn it over to John then.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. As Abby said, I'm John Grabo, and I'm a Medicaid planning attorney and certified senior advisor from Medicaid for You. And what I'm going to do is just share my screen. I have a PowerPoint presentation that I'll take you all through. Well, today's presentation is how to avoid complete financial ruin from a long-term care crisis. As more and more baby boomers enter their golden years, they'll be confronted with one of the biggest financial risks in the history of their generation. It's expected that the overwhelming majority of American seniors will require long-term care at some point during their lives. In many instances, the cost of this long-term care will exceed their retirement income and savings, thereby greatly jeopardizing their standard of living and quality of life. For seniors who are more financially vulnerable, the need for costly long-term care can prove to be an insurmountable challenge. Sadly, many people wrongly believe that only after exhausting all of their assets can they turn to social programs like Medicaid for help. The good news is that people are living longer. The present life expectancy in the US is just shy of 79, and seniors aged 65 and older now make up about 15% of the US population, with that demographic expected to grow to around 20% over the course of the next 20 years. The bad news is that despite longer life expectancies, people really aren't living healthier lives, and the cost of long-term care is already expensive and growing more expensive with each passing year. The average nursing home cost for a private room in Iowa City is about $7,500 per month or $91,000 per year. Long-term care insurance is a viable option for some, but the reality is that the insurance companies only cover healthy applicants. About 50% of those who are 70 and older, and about a third of those between the ages of 60 and 65 are rejected for coverage. Medicaid, on the other hand, is available to anyone who meets the program's requirements. Most of you probably already are aware that there are strict income and asset limitations. Today, it's my goal to dispel a few of the myths that exist regarding Medicaid eligibility. In addition to Medicaid, there's also Veterans Aid and Attendance, which is a form of enhanced pension available to veterans who served during wartime. The first step in understanding Medicaid is to make sure that you don't confuse it with Medicare. Medicare will cover a patient's first 100 days of rehabilitation in a nursing home following a 3-day stay in hospital as an inpatient. The first 20 days in the nursing home are fully covered by Medicare, and the other 80 days are covered at 80%. Long-term care Medicaid, though, isn't a something-for-nothing program. Rather, it's best to think of it as a sort of cost-sharing program similar to insurance with a copay. The Medicaid requirements are that you must be 65 years of age or older or disabled. You also must have a doctor's order for skilled nursing care due to a physical or mental condition. Typically, that means you need assistance with at least some of the activities of daily living, such as hygiene, dressing, eating, toileting, continence, and mobility or transferring. And then there are the income and asset limitations, which we'll get into here in just a moment. So what exactly does Medicaid provide? Well, it provides 24/7 skilled nursing care. It can also provide what's referred to as home and community-based services, which are simply services Medicaid recipients receive in their own home or community rather than in institutions. These programs serve a variety of targeted groups, such as people with intellectual or developmental disabilities, physical disabilities, or mental illnesses. As mentioned earlier, Medicaid is a form of cost sharing based on the recipient's income. So What exactly is the goal of Medicaid planning? It's to secure the best possible care at the lowest possible cost in terms of asset and income preservation. In order to accomplish that, though, you have to follow the rather complex Medicaid rules. So what exactly can you keep if you receive Medicaid? Although this is by no means an exhaustive list, here are a few of the assets you can actually keep. You can keep your home with equity not exceeding $603,000. You can keep one car regardless of value. You can keep household goods and personal effects, prepaid burial contracts unlimited in value but subject to reasonableness as measured by average funeral costs. I put down $15,000 because that's a pretty good estimate. Life insurance policies with a cumulative face value not exceeding $1,500. Medicaid compliant annuities, which are single premium immediate annuities, or SPIA for short, that contain no cash value and provide immediate income to the annuity owner. These types of annuities provide pre-planning opportunities. You can also keep $2,000 in other assets if you're single. On the other hand, if you're married, the healthy, or what's called the community spouse, can keep half your combined assets up to a maximum for 2021 of $130,380. This is referred to as the community spouse resource allowance. If both spouses are in a nursing home, $3,000 is the asset limit. Patient income is presently limited to $2,382 monthly, but the community spouse is allowed to keep an unlimited amount of his or her own income. They can even receive some of the patient's income if necessary for their support. The state can, however, attempt to recover the amount of Medicaid for the patient's care after his or her death, but there are ways to prevent recovery. What assets are countable against the asset limits? Well, simply put, everything else. So what's the Medicaid spend down? That's the amount your assets exceed the applicable limit. But when we say spend down, we don't necessarily mean on nursing home bills. The calculation is total assets less the protected assets. Again, those are the assets mentioned earlier, like your home, car, household goods, and personal effects, less the applicable asset limit. This spend down example uses a married couple where one spouse is in a nursing home and the other spouse is not. Notice the word countable in reference to their total assets. That just means we've already subtracted out the protected or non-countable assets. After dividing that figure by 2, this couple's total is over the maximum for the community spouse resource allowance. So the maximum of $130,380 is subtracted from the total countable assets to arrive at what needs to be spent down. This is an example of a nursing home patient spend down who's single. As you can see, it's far easier to shelter assets when there's an at-home spouse than it is with just a single person or both spouses who are in a nursing home. When it comes to gifts, there's a 5-year look back on any gifts or transfers made for less than fair market value. The total of those gifts or transfers made during the 5-year period prior to a Medicaid application creates a penalty period of ineligibility. The number of months of ineligibility is determined by taking the sum of those gifts and transfers and dividing it by Iowa's Medicaid penalty divisor. As of last September, the divisor is about $237 per day or $7,200 per month. So just for the sake of simplicity, let's say you gifted a total of $7,200 within the 5-year look-back period. That would create 1 month of ineligibility. There are certain exceptions to the gift penalty. An example is the sibling exemption, which allows the home to be transferred to a sibling who is a part owner of the house and who lived in the home for at least 1 year prior to his or her sibling moving into a Medicaid-funded nursing home. This must be done correctly, though, in order to avoid violating Medicaid's look-back period and creating a period of Medicaid ineligibility. Another exception is the family caregiver agreement. If you provide care to an ailing parent or grandparent, the Department of Human Services will regard any monies paid to you as a gift in the absence of a carefully drafted family caregiver agreement. Gifting to a trust is a great pre-planning strategy. Basically, you transfer assets to a Medicaid asset protection trust and then wait out the 5-year look-back period. This is also a great way to lock in the value of the trust assets as they appreciate in value. Another commonly used technique is called the half-loaf strategy. Basically, you gift half your assets to your loved ones and then buy a Medicaid-compliant annuity to cover the period of ineligibility created by gifting half your assets away. One of the main strategies used in Medicaid planning is to shift away assets from unprotected or countable categories to assets within a protected category. One of the ways of spending down or shifting assets is through the use of fair market value transactions. For example, you could buy more personal items like a new refrigerator, lawnmower, or snowblower. You could replace your old car for a new one, invest in some home improvements, pay down a mortgage or home equity loan, buy a prepaid funeral, buy burial plots for you and other family members. The healthy spouse can also convert to an income stream through the purchase of a Medicaid compliant annuity. This is a great strategy because the healthy spouse's income is unlimited and the Medicaid compliant annuity is a non-countable asset under Medicaid rules. And then, as previously mentioned, there's the half-a-loaf strategy in the family caregiver agreement. The community spouse resource allowance is the amount of assets the at-home spouse can keep. It's limited to 1/2 the couple's total assets up to a maximum limit for 2021 of $130,380. There's also a minimum amount for 2021, which is $26,076. So if 1/2 the couple's assets is less than that amount, then the minimum becomes the CSRA amount. The assets used to determine the CSRA are those assets the couple held on what's called the snapshot date. That's the date the Medicaid applicant was first institutionalized. So if there was a hospital stay prior to a transfer to a nursing home, then the snapshot date is the date the patient was first admitted to the hospital. Excess assets may be spent down using some of the techniques and strategies previously mentioned. Unlike the nursing home patient whose assets will be looked at with each annual renewal for Medicaid, the healthy spouse's assets will never be looked at again after the initial application. The use of what is commonly referred to as a Miller Trust allows Medicaid applicants to meet the income limitation for Medicaid eligibility. After the deduction of certain expenses like a personal need allowance of $50 per month for the patient and a deduction for health insurance premiums, whatever is left serves as a copay for the patient's nursing home care. Medicaid then pays the difference. The Department of Human Services, which oversees the state's Medicaid program, is perfectly fine with the use of a Miller Trust because after the patient passes away, any funds remaining in the trust goes back to the state to reimburse it for the Medicaid assistance it paid for the patient's nursing home stay. It's therefore in the family's best interest to whittle down as much income going into the trust as possible. One way to do that is to look at the at-home spouse's monthly maintenance needs and request additional assistance from the patient's income. We do that by looking at the housing costs of the at-home spouse and requesting additional funds to help cover those living expenses. Remember, the government isn't looking to impoverish the at-home spouse. A common concern among the elderly applying for or receiving nursing home care through Medicaid is what will happen to their home. This is also a frequent concern of adult children when their mother, father, or both parents need Medicaid assistance while in a nursing home. Can Medicaid take the home when the elderly individual moves to a nursing home? Can the state take the home after the Medicaid recipient dies? What if a spouse or other family member lives in the home? Is there a way for the home to be protected as an inheritance for the family? Unfortunately, these are complicated questions and the answers depend on a family's specific situation. But let's take a more in-depth look at two of the most common scenarios. First, let's say that you're single and moving into a nursing home. When you're first admitted, you must provide a written statement indicating your intent to return home, which allows the home to remain exempt under Medicaid rules if you have an equity interest in it under a specified value. In 2021, the equity interest limit here in Iowa is $603,000. Essentially, an intent to return home statement protects your home from Medicaid while you live in a nursing home. Without an intent to return home statement, your home would make you ineligible for Medicaid. Therefore, you would have to sell it and use the proceeds for your nursing home care until you are financially eligible for Medicaid. It's also important to note, upon your death, the state is able to file a claim against your probate estate, including your home, in order to collect funds for repayment of your nursing home care expenses. Now let's look at a married couple with one spouse moving to a nursing home. Your spouse moves into a Medicaid-funded nursing home. You are considered the community spouse, and as such, you're entitled to stay in the home. This holds true regardless of the equity value in your home. However, the best way to handle this situation is to have the title of the home transferred solely into your name. As the spouse of the Medicaid applicant, the home can be transferred to a spouse without violating the Medicaid's back period. Transferring the home to the community spouse will also protect your home from Medicaid's estate recovery claim. There's a myth that nursing home care received through Medicaid is substandard, but the reality is that about half of all nursing home care in this country is provided through Medicaid assistance. Furthermore, when a nursing home agrees to take Medicaid payments, it also agrees not to discriminate against residents based on how they're paying. Medicaid recipients are entitled to the same quality of care as other residents. A nursing home that accepts Medicaid can't evict residents solely because they've qualified for Medicaid. However, it can refuse to accept more patients once it reaches its Medicaid maximum. While it's always best to pre-plan for Medicaid assistance, just remember it's never too late, even if you or your loved one already is in a nursing home. And I've given you my email address and phone number there in case you'd like to follow up for a free consultation. I'm always available to answer any questions. And that's basically the end of my presentation.
I want to thank John for being here today and sharing his expertise and knowledge.